Hey everybody, and welcome to Bits of Board, where we're talking board games, miniatures, cards and dice. My name's Michael and today we are checking out Food Chain Magnate, and this review is kind of a big deal because Food Chain Magnate is by far one of the most celebrated heavy economic Euros around. It is released by the wonderful Splotter Games, and these guys are kind of known for doing their Euros that kind of focus on industry, the rise of industry. They tend to have some sort of engine building and then like a trademark spatial management puzzle on the table. These guys are so whack. Probably the most indie mainstream game company around. Now, this is actually going to be the first of a couple of videos that I'm going to do about them. I want to run through this, I want to run through Antiquity, the Great Zimbabwe, Indonesia, Roads and Boats. I really just want to pay tribute to their contribution to the scene because these guys are truly inspirational. For a dude that enjoys tinkering with the concept of board game design, these guys are just so far above and beyond the pack, right? Now this review, it's a review, I wouldn't call it a teach. It's going to go through a lot of the board game concepts and a lot of the rules, but I don't think I've gone into enough depth to be able to say, hey guys, you're ready to play. So make sure you have a good read of the rulebook before you play, or make sure you got someone who knows what they're doing teaching you through, because that is honestly the best way to play for reasons you'll soon see. Alright, that's enough of me talking about this game. Shall we get stuck into it? Yes, we shall. Let's dive in. Food Chain Magnate is a competitive, strategic, engine-building economic sim played on a map of the neighborhood where players will open diners, cook food, sell drinks, advertise, develop their employees, and grow their chain to be the best, most profitable, influential food chain on the scene. Epic, right? The game is played over a variable number of rounds, with each round being split into one of these 7 phases. And it's in these phases that players will determine the success of their restaurant chain. The aim of the game is to be the richest, and the game end is triggered by emptying the bank of all of its cash. And while it's slightly more complicated than that, we'll cross the specifics of that shortly. Now, when I run through games, I like to hit it in 3 different phases. It works really well for minis on map games, but I also think it works well here for Food Chain Magnate. First things first, we're going to take a look at the map, the grand arena on which our battle takes place. Then we'll examine our character, our player roles in determining the tides of this battle. And then lastly, I usually talk about the opposing forces. In minis on a map game, it's usually the bad guys, the dungeon inhabitants, that sort of thing. But in Food Chain Magnate, the bad guys are not quite as obvious. In this section, I'm going to talk about the needs of the consumers and, of course, the race to milestones. All right, that said, you guys ready? Let's get into it. The map. Mechanically, this is built randomly out of an assortment of tiles and changes size based on the number of players. Food Chain Magnate plays 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 5 players using all of the available tiles. Each tile here is laid with a random orientation and a random position forming the map, which means you're pretty much never going to play the same map twice. Let's drop back to the 2-player map. There we go, much nicer. So basically here we have a representation of a neighborhood. We have major roads scattered across the place. We have what I'd call suburbs, which are the spaces enclosed by those roads. We have house markings representing the initial placement of customers during setup of the map. And we also have drink pickup locations, and we can also have red ones as well. And these represent different supply points that we're going to use to pick up those items throughout the game. Now that's not all the information that's ever going to be contained on the map. Players are going to be able to place their own restaurants on the map, one during setup and the others going to be placed through the use of actions later on. Now, just quickly having a look at the restaurant tiles, you'll notice that we have a little marking in the top right-hand corner here, and this represents the entry and exit point to which your customers have to be able to reach if they're ever going to visit your restaurant. So if I put my restaurant down here with the entrance facing this part of the road, house number 8 here would have to make a very long trip in order to get to this particular entrance. However, if I place the restaurant like this, you'll note that it's both on this underpass road and the bridge that goes across. So house 8 only has to travel a very small distance to get there. Now, distance is a very important concept in Food Chain Magnate, and we'll touch on that a little later. For the moment though, let's stick to the map. So aside from the different restaurants that can be placed, we also have gardens, which we can use to upgrade houses, both in capacity of what sort of food they want and how much money they're going to be paying. We can place just whole new houses that are already upgraded. And we can place marketing campaigns that are going to determine what sort of foods the different houses are going to be into. So the map contains a huge chunk of information and only gets busier and busier as the game continues. But it's you, the player, that determines just how out of hand things can get. So what is the player's role in this game? Well, every player at the table will be the CEO of their very own restaurant chain. You pick your player color, and then the very first decision that you make in this game is where you're going to place your opening restaurant on the map. Now, this opening decision is probably one of the most grueling and agonizing decisions you're going to make through the entire game, because here you'll need to evaluate every single placement option on every single tile, looking at the starting resources as well as expansion options later on in the game. Now, there are a couple of placement restrictions when you're placing your first restaurant. Firstly, you can't overlap any printed information or tiles. And you've got to make sure that your new restaurant's entrance is not on the same tile as any other restaurant entrance already placed. No other opponent may place their restaurants on that same tile. So here, Golden Duck Diner would place their restaurant next, but they have been edged out of this lower section here. So obviously the first player to place a restaurant has a lot of power. How is this placement order determined? Well, really, it just boils down to turn order. Basically, you're going to randomize turn order as a part of setup, and then the player who's going last in turn order is going to make the first restaurant placement. So Gluttony Burgers is going to be the first to place, and I'm thinking a really good option here, a very controlling option, is this center tile. As you can see, we've put our entrance so that it connects to the top of the bridge and the underpass of the bridge there, and we have a number of houses quite close by, so hopefully we can attract them to our restaurant. Golden Duck Diner would now place their opening restaurant, and here they're prevented from using the middle tile. Keeping a bit of pressure on, they're going to go into the top row so they have more control of the business going on up there. Alright, now that we've got a couple of restaurants placed, let's take a look at the whole distance and range mechanic that Food Chain Magnate employs, because this thing is used across a number of game elements. Distance is a unit of measurement, most notably when determining where hungry households are going to eat at the end of the day. Let's say we have two houses here. One wants a pizza, one wants a burger. The pizza hungry household is only going to a restaurant that sells pizza. Same with the burger, except they only want burgers. Let's say Golden Duck Diner did not sell pizza, and Gluttony Burgers, funnily enough, did sell pizza. This household would travel down to Gluttony Burgers, pay them some money, and eat their pizza. But what if both of these restaurants had pizza for sale? This household is going to make a calculated decision. They're going to first look at the distance between all the restaurants that sell what they want, in this case pizza, and then they're going to add to that the unit price of the item. Now, base unit price for all foods and drinks in this game is going to be $10. So let's use that to make a really simple calculation. House number 2 here, they're first going to evaluate Golden Duck Diner. We've got a $10 unit price plus the distance from their house to this restaurant. In this case, the distance is 0 because the house is on the exact same tile as the restaurant and can be reached by road. Their total value comparing is 10. Let's have a look at Gluttony Burgers. Again, we've got a $10 unit price plus the distance from this house to this restaurant. The distance is going to be 1. How is this determined? Well, we're going to trace a line from the house to the entrance of the restaurant. And for every map tile border that we cross making that journey, we increase the distance by 1. In this case, we would compare 11 to 10. The household's going to go to the lowest value, in this case 10, and they're going to eat pizza at the Golden Duck Diner. Now, obviously things can get a little bit more complicated. There can be a ton more restaurants on the map. And well, you can also adjust the unit price of the food that you sell. All right, so now we've got a restaurant on the map. Now what? Each player has a CEO card, and throughout the course of the game, they're going to be hiring new employees that they can place in their own management structure. During the very first phase of the game, restructuring, players are going to take any employees that they've hired and create a structure beneath their CEO card. And then, after redetermining turn order, they're going to put those employees to work. In that newly determined turn order, players will activate every single character that they've included in their new structure. But there's an order to these that allow for some great card combinations, but still preventing the players from taking advantage of the game system. Now, sometimes it's not always beneficial to fill up your entire reporting hierarchy. In fact, you might like to leave a gap. This creates an open slot in the company structure, and when determining that player order, the CEO with the most open slots gets to pick their place in turn order. Of course, as CEO, you don't want waitresses and marketing trainees reporting directly to you. So throughout the game, you can hire additional management levels. So here we have a management trainee. We could place additional employees beneath them, or we could keep it clear to increase the number of open slots. But of course, being one of those games where pretty much anything goes, the only card you have during the first round of the game is your CEO card. So you are going to be building your available employees completely from scratch. Now, there are actually quite a large number of employees that you can have working for your company, but whenever you're hiring an employee, you must only hire from the most junior of positions available. So I thought it might be a good idea in our little introduction of this game to have a look at all of those basic employees. The first of which is the waitress. Including the waitress in your company structure will net you $3 cash straight away. And it's also the tiebreaker in determining where a hungry household is going to eat if the distance and cost algorithm ends up being the same. The management trainee is next, and these allow you to host more employees in your structure. Now, these guys are one of the most important hires because of just how versatile they can be. You see, through the use of training, the management trainee can be promoted across a number of different pathways. So as you can see here, the management trainee could become a junior vice president, could become a new business developer, or a luxuries manager. And then you'll see the junior vice president can they themselves be promoted into a number of options. Next up, we have the pricing manager, who if you host in your hierarchy will reduce the unit price for any goods that you sell. This helps you steal business from the competition. Although it nets you less money per unit, it's generally better to get the sale than to not get the sale. Next, we have the recruiting girl, who just like your CEO card allows you to hire one of these basic employees. Next, we have the trainer, who allows you to train one of your employees so long as they're not currently in your company structure. Next up is the errand boy, who can get you one drink of any type, and he can be promoted up the chain to actually make use of those drink supply locations on the map. So just briefly taking a look at the cart operator, we can see that he acts at a range of 2 from the restaurant that he's chosen, and he may get 2 drinks from each source on that route. So let's take a look at what that means. Here's our map. Let's say this cart operator is acting out of the Golden Duck Diner. He has a range of 2. Let's say we wanted some beers. We'll park our cart out the front of Golden Duck Diner and go for a ride. We're at range 1 moving onto this tile, and we'll take a turn down to be adjacent to this beer supply point, and we net ourselves a beer. Sweet. We've still got 1 range to go, so let's continue south down the road. Oops, breaking the road, but making the turn to be adjacent to this beer as well. We net ourselves 2 beers in that particular trip. Now, it is important to note that you've got to obey all road rules, which means no U-turns, guys. So for whatever reason, if you wanted to go north off this tile, you wouldn't be able to go down here, collect a beer, and then travel back north. No. And it also means that you're not allowed to jump off bridges. All right, moving right along, we have the marketing trainee, who allows you to place a billboard within range 2 of any of your restaurants. This billboard is given a duration, the number of turns that it will actually advertise the product that you choose. Let me quickly show you how that works. Now, players have always got a choice what size token they're going to be placing on the board, and these will fit their needs different ways. Here is the full selection of billboards available to players. However, in a 2-player game, we only get these ones. Each billboard has a token to be placed on the map and an identifying token that you place on the marketing personnel to show that they're busy doing the marketing. So let's go ahead and take billboard number 14, chuck it out on the map like so, and we are going to advertise beer. Now currently this billboard has a duration of 1, but we can go up to a duration of 2, and we stack a number of tokens on top of each other just to show that duration. The player who played the marketing trainee into their structure would then take that little chip and place it on top of their card to show that this trainee is now too busy to re-enter the reporting structure. Over the rounds, the duration will go down, and on that final round, the billboard is removed from the map, the trainee is returned to the player's available employees, and finally the billboard is returned to be available for other players to select. Now, just like the errand boy, the marketing trainee can be trained to place different types of marketing, and each different type of marketing affects the board in different ways. Billboards, as we saw before, will advertise to any houses that are orthogonally adjacent to it. So, in the marketing campaigns phase, ages after we place the campaign, tokens are placed on the houses to show their needs on the next round, and a duration token is removed. The next type of marketing that can be placed is a mailbox campaign. A mailbox will reach any houses it can get to without crossing a road. This is that suburb concept that I was talking about before for us Australians, or blocks as it says in the rulebook. So as you can see here, this pizza marketing campaign will hit not only this house here, but it will pass freely through that house over to the house in the bottom left corner down here. Mailboxes are a very powerful campaign, especially if you have big open areas on your map. Aeroplanes are the next kind of campaign, and instead of being placed on the board, they're actually placed adjacent to the board. And they will affect any area regardless of range all the way across the map. Let's get some burgers out there, and you'll see that this campaign hits a huge number of houses. Not only does it hit this one here, but it hits number 2, number 12, and number 8 over here. Incredibly powerful, but not so much as the radio token. And this can be placed on any tile on the board, and it will affect all houses in its tile and the 8 tiles surrounding it. So let's get some lemonade out there. A massive campaign there. All right, now that we've seen him in action, the last basic employee that we can hire is the kitchen trainee, and he can produce 1 burger or 1 pizza. And you're certainly going to be needing these if you're going to be feeding those advertising campaigns out there. Now, kitchen trainees aren't very efficient, so they can of course be upgraded as well. Burger cooks, burger chefs, pizza cooks, pizza chefs, it's all there, and they just get better and better with each upgrade. Now, upgrading employees is a super important part of the game, because how else are you going to be able to open up new restaurants, place gardens, or, create that insanely powerful reporting structure? But there is a small catch. For any employee that you have that has been upgraded, whether you use them in your structure or not, they have to be paid a salary. And you can see that with the little money symbol that's contained on the player aids and the cards. So you're going to have to choose who and what you upgrade, because if you can't, or if you don't want to pay one of your upgraded employees, well, you're going to have to fire them. Not to worry though, salaries aren't too expensive at $5 per employee, and you can get some really powerful employees that reduce the salary that you're required to pay. Now you might notice another symbol floating around, and this is that 1 times symbol. It means you can only have one of those employees in your structure at any given time, and there's actually a reduced number of those employees available to the entire pool of players at the table. So if you've got your eye on the guru who has some amazing abilities, you got to get there first. If you want the CFO who boosts your cash flow at the end of every round, you got to get there quick. At a 2 and 3 player game, there is only 1 of each of these cards available. So the competition is fierce. Okay, so obviously as you play, you're going to develop a small deck of available employees. Those of you that you add to your reporting structure are considered to be at work, and those that you do not are considered to be on the beach. What makes this game tricky is that pretty much everything around is public knowledge. Everyone can see what you've hired, when you've hired. It's just in that very first phase of restructuring that things go dark. Players will be looking through their hands, building up the best structures in secret, and then revealing them as they go into play. And this can cause some serious issues, as well as laying waste to some of the best laid plans. All right, so we've had a look at almost everything, so let's quickly revisit the round structure. First, we have the restructuring phase, where players choose the employee cards that they're going to host in their company structure. Once all players are done, they reveal that structure, build it up, and then determine the player with the most open spots. This is the order of business phase, where players get to determine the new turn order going forward. Following that phase is the working 9 to 5 section, where players in turn order will resolve the effects of each employee they've hosted in their structure. There's an order: first recruiting, training, initiating marketing campaigns, getting food and drinks, placing new houses and gardens, and finally placing or moving restaurants. After that phase, we have the dinner time phase, which I will be showing an example of shortly, but this is where all of the hungry households are going to go out and try and get a feed. After everyone's eaten, players have to pay any employees that require a salary. We resolve the effects of any marketing campaigns. Again, I'll show an example of that in a sec. And then we have the cleanup phase. Now, during this phase, players have to discard any unsold food and drink, which means there can be a huge amount of wastage depending on how that dinner time phase went. After that, players take back all the employee cards in their structure, returning them to that on the beach pile. However, they've got to leave out any employees that are busy with marketing. The final part of the cleanup phase has something to do with milestones. Now, I haven't talked about milestones yet, and this is kind of on purpose because I wanted to show that the underlying gameplay of Food Chain Magnate is solid on its own. But these milestones, they elevate this game from a great strategy to probably one of the best competitive games I've had hit the table. So milestones are achievements awarded to the first players who reach certain landmarks in running their business. Pretty much everything is a first. First burger produced, first drink marketed, first to have $100. And anytime someone reaches one of these milestones, they get awarded a milestone card. But what is the point behind the milestone? Well, for every first that you achieve, you gain kinda a special power that you get to use for the remainder of the game. For example, if you are the first player to market a drink, you're going to get an extra $5 for every drink you sell for the remainder of the game. If you are the first person to run a radio campaign, you're now able to market 2 goods with your radio campaigns. Heck, if you were the first person to place a billboard, you no longer pay any salaries for marketeers, and you gain what's called eternal marketing, which means your marketing campaigns have no duration and instead remain on the board forever. And it's the awards like that that are just so game-breaking. The catch here is that at the end of the round where someone achieves a milestone, they become unavailable for every single other player. This is that final step of the cleanup phase. Take remaining milestone cards that have been awarded this turn out of play. Let's say you really wanted this early milestone. First to throw away food or drink. This is a wonderful, uber powerful ability that gives the player a freezer that will store up to 10 food or drink. It means you don't have to throw away all your unsold produce. Now let's say you were just one single turn away from getting this, and another player swoops in, makes some food, throws it away. They will get to keep the milestone, and then that's it. That milestone is off the table, and any progress you've made towards it counts to nothing. Look, some of the stuff's really cool. If you're the first person to play a waitress, they're instead going to net you $5 instead of $3 for every waitress that you host. If you're the first to produce a pizza, you gain a pizza cook. It's the same thing for the burgers as well. Errand boys and cart operators gain a milestone for the first cart operator played. Buyers will get a +1 increase to range for the remainder of the game. First errand boy played will gain all buyers +1 drink from each resource. It can get insane. I mean, first person to train someone gains a $15 discount on salaries. That's essentially 3 free upgraded employees every round. Look at this one. First to have $100, I mean, you must already be doing pretty well, but this milestone grants a +50% on earnings at the end of every round. You make $100 this next round, you're going to get an extra $50. Seriously, the milestones are just insane, and they sort of help create targets for players as they get through the game. Honestly, the way they intertwine with some of the different strategies I mean, some of these milestones have strategies built around them themselves. All right, so this is one of Food Chain Magnate's most unique elements, this whole achievement concept. And while it does a lot to shake the game up, well, I've got one little bit of extra information for you. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into those examples is end game trigger. You know, I said earlier that the aim of the game is to be the richest and the end game is triggered once the bank has been exhausted of all of its money. Well, it's kind of a half-truth. You see, the full game ends as soon as the bank has been exhausted twice. For the first half of the game, the bank is populated with $50 per player. Play will continue until someone has taken the very last note, and then something beautiful happens. The bank is replenished, but this time it is an unknown amount of money. And this, just like those milestones before, is another one of those amazing little elements that makes Food Chain just so special. Let me take you back to setup. Players have placed their very first restaurant and now they have to make the second most difficult decision. They have to determine the bank's reserve for the second half of the game. Players are given 3 reserve cards, a $100 card, a $200 card, and a $300 card. And they have to decide how much money they want there to be in the bank in the second half of the game. And this decision ties so much into the strategy the player wants to play through the game. You see, if they want to play a short game focusing on quick cash, they are going to choose to have a small amount added. Whereas someone that wants to concentrate more on building their employee base, getting the real high-end employees, they want the game to continue on for a long time, they're going to choose to have the most money added to the bank. The best part? This decision is made in secret. Let's say during setup, Gluttony Inc. Burgers wants a long game. They throw $300. Zango Blues wants a short game. They've selected $100. Golden Duck Diner is in the same boat. They're playing a short game, adding $100. And Fried Geese and Donkey, the best name in the entire game, doesn't really care. These cards are collected, shuffled up, and placed off to the side of the game board until that bank has run out of cash. Players' selections are mostly kept a secret unless an ability allows a player to have a look, and then as soon as that bank is drained the first time, it's all revealed, and no one knows who contributed what. All they know now is this is the amount of money left in the bank, and some strategies might have to alter drastically. Now, that's mostly it for the reserve cards. However, the second half of the game also brings a small change to the CEO's reporting structure. The card that has the most of its type in the pile will set the new reporting structure of the CEO card. So here we have the $100 selection being the most frequent in the pile. Everyone's CEO card is reduced from 3 to 2. If, after the big reveal, there is a tie, you got to default to the highest number in the reporting structure. So I hope that's given you the gist of Food Chain. Like I said before, it is a really strong strategy game that has some brilliant and unique elements that just set it beyond some of the economic stuff around. We'll finish this part of the video up. We'll just have a quick look at an example dinner time phase and we'll go through a marketing campaigns phase as well. But that will pretty much do it. Once all that's done and dusted, we'll come on back. I'll have a bit of a chat about the game and that'll be the intro done. Let's go. All right, now that we've crossed the basics, we're going to play a very staged dinner time phase. It's here that all of our hungry households are going to try and find a restaurant to eat at. Now, the way this works is we look at the map and compare the numbers on all of the houses. We find the lowest numbered house on the map, in this case house number 2, and we start with their journey to find a feed. Now these guys here, they would like 3 burgers. So we begin by taking a look at the inventory of each of our restaurant chains. Golden Duck Diner down here has 2 hamburgers, while Gluttony Inc. Burger has a ton, all the way up to 5. Now even though Golden Duck Diner is closer, they cannot meet the full requirements of that household. So they're going to have to travel to get what they want. They head out the door, travel down the path, and reach the entrance to Gluttony Inc. Burger. Bang, that is a sale. Now you'll note that they don't have any pricing adjustments underneath their CEO, so they're going to get the full $10 per unit payment here. $30 Very nice. We remove the requirements from the household and we discard the inventory from the restaurant. We go to the next household and the list, and lo and behold, we have the upgraded household number 4. Now, this upgrade is just crucial for a big payout. Not only can they hold more requirements, a basic house having 3, a house with a garden able to hold up to 5, but they also double the amount paid. Unfortunately for both of our restaurants though, no one happens to have the cola required, so these needs will remain there for the next turn. Next house in line is household number 8. They need 2 burgers and a pizza. Check it out. Both of our companies are able to feed them. So where is this household going? Well, we got to compare both restaurants. Gluttony Inc. Burgers is closest at a range of 1, and we saw before that they're not altering their prices, so the comparative value is 11. Let's take a look at Golden Duck Diner. Household number 8 would have to travel at range of 2, but they've got a price adjustment, bringing their total unit price down to 9. That 9 plus 2 also gives an 11. Right now, Gluttony Inc. Burger and Golden Duck Diner are tied. How do we break that tie? Well, we use the waitresses. The restaurant chain with the highest number of waitresses in their organizational structure will win the tie. And in the case that we didn't have any waitresses, we just head down to the turn order track and the person with the restaurant closest to the front breaking the tie. In any case, Golden Duck Diner makes the sale. 3 units sold. 1, 2, 3 at $9 a piece. Yeah, $27 is certainly not $30, but it's a bunch of money that our opposing restaurants do not get to keep. Moving right along, we're heading over to household number 12, and they want pizza and a lemonade. Golden Duck Diner don't have the lemonade, so the business is going to head over to Gluttony Inc. just across the road. $10 a piece. That's another 20. Next up, we have household number 13. They'd like a burger, a lemonade, and a beer. Unfortunately, none of our restaurants can fully satisfy it on their own, so we're going to leave those there. We move to household number 15. They would like 2 pizzas, and it looks like Golden Duck Diner is the only one on the map that can pull that off. And even though they're not competing for this sale, they still have to sell at the reduced amount, $9 a piece. $18, that could have been 20. Is it worth it? Probably. All right, we have one more house on the board, this one up top here. A burger, a pizza, and a beer. No one can handle the sale. And that brings us to the end of the phase, with the last step, each player getting paid for any waitresses they hosted in their structure. Alright, so we've had a look at the way dinner time works. Let's do the same for the marketing campaigns I've got scattered around. We use the number printed on each marketing campaign to determine the order and send out what they're advertising. First campaign on the map is the radio campaign over here, and they're advertising burgers. We add a burger to every household on the same tile and one more for every household in each surrounding tile. So over here we have number 2 and number 12, but household 16 up here already has 3 demand tokens, and because it hasn't been upgraded, can't get any more. We then remove a duration token, and with none left on the advertising scheme, we take it off the board. Next up, we have our airplane advertising campaign, and we're going to chuck some pizzas out. 1 on 2, 1 on 8, 12, 13 misses out because it's full of demands, and then 15 gets one. We remove the duration token and return the campaign to the supply. Number 7 is the next to go off, and this is a letterbox campaign, which means it's going to hit every house that it can reach without crossing a road. So with this campaign, we add a demand token to 8, and we fill up number 2 and 12. We remove a duration token, noting that it's only got 1 turn left. We've got a billboard down here with houses 13 and 15, advertising hamburgers. 13's full of demand, so nothing goes there. House number 15 gets 1. Again, we remove a duration token, and it lives to fight another round. Last one for us is billboard number 13. Again, this household is full, and even though it doesn't get a chance to affect it, its duration reduces, and we discard the token. Alright, there it is, guys and gals, Food Chain Magnate in all of its glory. I really hope the vid so far has given you a good feel of what to expect when this one hits the table, but I also hope that it's kind of given you that little bit of a drive to go out and actually try a game. Right now though, we'll head into the debrief side of things. Obviously, it's hard to hide here. I'm quite a big fan of this game and Splotter themselves. I really appreciate what they do with themes. I mean, 1950s restaurant manager here, it is not a very common theme around. But it's also got this very simple motivation that drives the whole thing that the players are trying to achieve. Build an engine, get the money, don't stuff it up. It's a simple concept, but we as players are given total power about how we go about achieving this. Evolution of the game engine, the way we execute our strategies, the way that we respond to the game state. And there's no random here. If something happens on the map, it's because one of the players around the table willed it to be so. I'm a really big fan of the graphic design. Yes, it's minimalist, but it is spot on in complementing the game. I can't say that it's fully responsible for the immersion. I mean, everything from the mechanics themselves to the language, it really helps take you in, and it really gives you something different to play in. But I've got to say, it's not going to be everyone's kind of game. I mean, looking at the box art, it may not be entirely apparent what you're going to play, and I'll tell you what, I wasn't expecting how bloody competitive this game is. It is competitive to the core. Honestly, the waitress on the front cover should be holding a dagger behind her back because this sucker is cutthroat. Food Chain Magnate fiercely pits players against each other from the very first turn of the game. From placement of restaurants to taking the first steps to achieving the milestones, almost every decision that you make in this game, while it's always beneficial to yourself, ends up depriving the other players of something they want and something they need. It is ruthless. Now, I know the same can be said against a number of games out there. Competition, let's be real, has always been a part of the gaming scene. But here in Food Chain Magnate, it seems amplified because the road to success, it's razor thin. One misstep, one miscalculation, a single moment of underestimating your opponent's strengths, and your game can be done for. If you drop too far behind the race for milestones, you miss out on exceptional powers. You start getting edged out of dinner time sales. First, you lose money, then you lose the employees, then your engine crumbles around you. Basically, once things go bad here, they go real bad. See, Food Chain is one of those games where even playing against someone who has played more than games to you, you're probably going to be at a disadvantage because it's just more likely that you're going to make more bad decisions than your opponent. It's just an experience thing. But just like any mistakes in real life, these decisions will afford an opportunity to learn something. But the question is, by the time you've stuffed up and you've learnt, do you have time to implement what you have learned and recover? And then there's the whole, what if I did a completely different strategy throughout the game? There are so many ways to play. Look, the competition stuff, I don't really care about. I don't mind a cutthroat game. But the biggest problem I have with Food Chain Magnate, and I throw this out kind of like a warning, right, is that it is so heavy and it's going to take a lot out of you each time you play. You're probably not going to want to do back-to-back games so that you can try out new strategies or, go for the rematch. See, it kind of requires this cycle. Play, learn, implement. It's great. It's the basis of developing pretty much every skill around. But after you come off a session of this, your mind might be too far gone to learn a thing. But this is also one of the reasons that I appreciate the game so much. There is such a challenge to this game, and it challenges you to think and solve problems in ways that you might not have thought to do before. And isn't that the mark of a great game engine? Man, and that's just mechanics. I'm not even talking about playing the game against the other players at the table. Then it becomes this battle of wits, and I'm just not even going to there. Look, there is a certain vastness to Food Chain Magnate where once you truly see all the underlying mechanics and how they influence the play at the table, well, this game kind of hits ridiculous levels, but in the best possible way. It can be so diverse in playstyle and so bountiful in replayability. Yeah, it's a tabletop game, but you can play it how you want. And if you can get into those elements, those challenging elements, and you can find a few other players out there that are willing to learn a lesson or two as they build their experience with the game, well, you, like me, are going to have a forever game in the collection with Food Chain Magnate. Something that may not be immediately gratifying, but it is so immediately engaging. And honestly, it's going to last you a lifetime. But I might be saying that because I've not hit that threshold of plays yet. Maybe it does peak out somewhere. And you know what? That's probably okay because Splotter are supporting this game. Little bit later on this year, there is going to be an expansion for this. Food Chain Magnate, the ketchup mechanism, and other ideas. What a cool name for the game. What a cool name for the expansion. Look, I don't know everything about what this expansion is going to hold. There's certainly a lot of ideas, and I think there's a few previews floating around. From what I've seen, it's going to include a bunch of modules that you can add into the game or not. Things like an actual catch-up mechanism that will allow players who are falling behind the ability to still win the game. I don't know if that's still in the spirit of Food Chain Magnate though, so we'll have to see. I also know that it's going to have a completely brand new deck of milestones, which are going to completely flip this game on its side. I play right now with those milestones in mind. You change those milestones, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Alright, that's enough of me prattling about. If you've enjoyed this look at Food Chain Magnate, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and do all the things that you guys can do to help this channel grow. We are this close to 1,000. This close. Anyway, like I said, stay tuned for more Splotter reviews. The next one's going to be Antiquity, but those of you out there that have actually played this game, you know how much of a challenge it's going to be to film up. So I'm pumped, I'm ready. We'll just see how long it takes. Alright guys and gals, that is it. I am done. As always, my name's Michael. This is Bits of Board. We'll catch you next time.